Okay, as Nepal therefore remains on the edge even now with no clear sign over who will be taking over the Himalayan Republic, I'm joined by the country's leading journalist, editor of Himal, Kanak Mani Dixit joins me. Appreciate your joining us, Mr. Dixit. Let's get this very clear. At this time yesterday, we were doing breaking news that Chief Justice Sushila Karki will lead the interim government. Now we are told more figures coming out. Kulman Ghising is one of the names. There's also Balendra Shah, the Kathmandu mayor. It seems that the Gen Z protesters are divided and don't know who will now lead the country. Do they have that kind of power? Can you explain why this division over who will succeed or who will be the next prime minister in Nepal?
Rajdeep, thank you for having me. The negotiations over who will lead the interim government have barely begun. However, some of the very imaginative minds among some of your colleagues in the media in India have decided to appoint the interim prime minister in Nepal. It was suggested Sushila Karki. She has been reluctant, who is the ex-Supreme Court Chief Justice. She has been reluctant in the beginning. But apparently there is no meeting of minds among aspects of the Gen Z generation. Remember, the Gen Z is an entire generation. Among them, there are some genuine individuals and there are some self-appointed latecomers who call themselves Gen Z. So it's, to begin with, the entire history making of Nepal as of now, and we're at a history making moment, was triggered by the generation Z or Z in South Asia, going in for a 3-hour dharna on the 8th of September. And by the very organizers of that Gen Z dharna, saying that we have been infiltrated, but we have already won the day, go home safely. So since then, it has been a roller coaster of violence of the first day, 19 dead through extreme police firing, more dead, 25 in all, 300 plus wounded. So we're still counting the incredible devastation. It has not even sunk in yet because we don't even know so much. Right. In the middle of all of this, certainly discussion has moved ahead. Who's going to be heading the caretaker government? Clearly, we'll have to have one.
Can I just stop you for a moment to go back to the Gen Z or Gen Z? Because I think here in India, we're trying to understand what is this Gen Z and Gen Z revolution, or who really are the faces of this revolution in Nepal. Is there more clarity now as to what, is there a clear line of leadership within Gen Z or Gen Z? Oh. Is it similar to what we saw in Bangladesh, where the student protesters eventually were trying to dictate terms to the establishment? Are we going to see that also playing out in Nepal? Do they have that kind of clout and power that they will decide, and not the political parties or even the army, as to what happens next in Nepal?
Firstly, there is some more clarity than earlier as to who are the representatives of the Gen Z. Certainly, they don't represent the whole country's youngsters and youth, but they do represent a significant and alert slice of individuals with access to social media, and a lot of them influencers and podcasters and content creators and others. And there is no doubt, Rajdeep, that the initial call for the sit-in and the rally on the 8th of September was very politically astute, talking about corruption, talking about good governance, etc. But then it clearly got overtaken by individuals claiming to be Gen Z, and it was infiltrated. So you talked about the political parties and whether there's any similarity with what happened in Bangladesh. I do not think the Generation Z in Nepal will get ultimately to dictate terms as seems to have happened in Bangladesh, primarily because today, till yesterday, there was sannata, there was so much violence and so much to digest, the kind of countrywide mayhem of the kind that we can get into if you have the time. But let me just say it was unprecedented in not just the modern history of Nepal, but the history of Nepal, the violence that we saw the day before, yes,
Can,
on the 8th. But then after that, the political parties, civic society, and others have activated themselves today. The ex-president Vidya Devi Bhandari has spoken up. The Nepal Bar Association have spoken up. The two political party personages of the high level have spoken up. All of them saying the constitution is not dead, parliament is not dead, and we are here, and the president has a role to play. So this is, as we stand today, that is the developing
Right.
story, Rajdeep.
Where does this leave the army in particular? Because the Nepal army chief was the one who stepped in yesterday, and he was seen to be the one, Ashok Raj Sigdel, who was trying to sort of cobble together some kind of an interim government. Do you believe that the army has that kind of clout that they will then decide what happens next in Nepal?
Historically, the army of Nepal has always followed the government, whether it is the royal government of the king or the democratic and republican governments subsequently. They also have to be worried of their international image because it is a very large contributing force to the UN peacekeepers. That is an element also to keep in mind. Besides that, the army definitely was in a hard place because Nepal was left with a political vacuum. Some of that political vacuum may be of the army's own doing. We do not know that right now because we are told that we have heard that one of the reasons Prime Minister KP Oli stepped down was because the army told him they can no longer provide him support. We do not know that yet, but the army needs to be questioned. For all the difficulties they may have in their own functioning, needs to be questioned. Where were you when the country was burning? Where were you when the edifices of our nation state, the parliament, the parliament and the Supreme Court, and as well as the government secretariat, all of them within your security command and within 2 kilometers of your radius of your office. Where were you that whole day when the public was in such distress? Anyway, be that as it may, the army did come onto the streets the night of the 9th, 10 p.m. And since then, thanks to the army, there has been calm on the streets. So
Right.
there is time now to breathe. And the civil society as well as the political forces have begun to regroup as I see it. This is my personal perception.
You're saying they've begun to regroup. Let me ask you a question that is under the surface but still bubbling there. Whether there are any external forces that are involved in this. Is this purely a domestic revolution, if I may use the word revolution, that has taken over the country? There was talk. Are there external forces at all involved in this? The Chinese, the Americans, do they all have some kind of role to play? Or should we call this purely internal Nepal's rebellion?
It's very easy to fall for conspiracy theories, and Nepal indeed has been subject to interventionism constantly, particularly from the southern neighbor, which is your country and your government. However, in the present case, what I would say is that both New Delhi and Beijing would like political stability in Nepal, and they will run with what is handed to them, even though certain wings of those governments may be proactive, and those are wings that do not bring out press releases, so one doesn't know.
Right.
But I could tell you this much, as I understand it. One is primarily it is the mayhem, okay? Besides the dastardly act of the police of killing 19 on the first day and 25 in all, peaceful protesters. Well, some of them were trying to break through to the parliamentary grounds, but they didn't have guns in hand, and they could have been tackled
Right.
according to the protocol of how you manage riots. And Nepali police was not able to do that. That is the first day. The heart-stopping continuation of the violence happened the next day when Kathmandu Valley and large cities all over were aflame. And during this time, one doesn't know who was doing it, but I can tell you one can also discuss who is benefiting from this chaos without having been involved in it.
Who is
That
benefiting?
I don't want to,
Who is benefiting? Who has benefited from the chaos?
before I get there, because otherwise I'll link them too quickly to the violence. Let me just say that there were clearly anarchists about. Those anarchists were probably, firstly, pure anarchists. Secondly, those who may have been involved with far right forces and the far left forces. Could be some ex-Maoist combatants who got involved.
Right.
Could be the Hindutva RSS-fed extremism that is also rife in Nepal. Even though they have not been involved in violent activities, they have been organizing in Nepal. All of those entities could try to foment a situation where the constitution collapses, the parliament is no more, and the president is gone, and then it's a free-for-all. And for those people who believe that free-for-all, because they are on the outside, it could benefit them, perhaps. This is a conjecture.
I have a minute. Can I ask you, are you today, on Thursday, a little bit more hopeful of peace and stability of some kind returning at the earliest than you were, let's say, 3 days ago when the violence was let loose across the country? Are you hopeful that Nepal is resilient enough to be able to move ahead?
Let me say this then. Yes, I am. Today was a turning point. Yesterday and the day before were not. But I must say this much that to your audience, that yesterday you had a guest from Nepal, a commentator, who said that the constitution was dead. I would like to, through this same pulpit, tell your audience that the constitution of Nepal is not dead, and there are enough people in Nepal rising up to try to save our constitution, because it was made by an elected constituent assembly over 8 years, and it is an inclusive constitution. It cannot be sent down the river that easily.
Okay. On that hopeful note, Kanak Mani Dixit, always a pleasure talking to you. Thank you very much for giving us your perspective. I know you've gone through very difficult days, but let's hope things get better and the sun rises once again over Everest. Thank you very much for joining me there from Kathmandu.
Thank you.